It comes in different colors. So in the box I ordered myself this bluish color and I really love it. Blue is my favorite color, so I just needed to pick it up. And the configuration of the display I already mentioned before is quite interesting. Another thing I also find quite nice, it comes with an IPS panel and the bezel is very slim. You don't really notice it if it's even turned off. Nevertheless, let's take a close look at the device today. Let's play some games because this thing is absolutely very cool for the money you're paying for it. So deep dive into the box and let's check out what are going to give us more. So it comes with a very nice high quality Type-C cable, a very long one too, and the toilet paper manual. Yeah, it's not even called a toilet paper manual because there's actually nothing over here that explains how and what. Yeah, of course it will give you some quick combination of the functions. But besides that there is nothing much to say. But let's talk about the top part. So we're going to get 4 shoulder buttons. The 4 shoulder buttons is a configuration that we have seen with previous models of Powkiddy and Anbernic. But when you're looking at the front angle, here you can see there's quite some differences when it comes to the height of the 2 buttons. And that makes using the shoulder buttons on this particular device very comfortable. When holding it like this, you can press both buttons fairly easy. And this configuration, where I'm not a big fan of shoulder buttons, this is absolutely great. We have a physical volume control, then we're going to get a reset button, the on and off switch, and even have the option for an HDMI out. And when you're looking at the button configuration, this makes me really happy. And what do I mean? It's quite simple. The D-pad is on the right place, the same goes for the joysticks, and the ABXY buttons, they're still tiny like a Nintendo Switch, but they're not bad at all. But when you're looking at the D-pad, this thing feels absolutely amazing. It does have let's say, a travel to it, but not to the point it's a way to, let's say, having a resistance, and the travel is quite annoying to play. But when it comes to the D-pad, well, I do love the feel itself. For fighting games, it's going to be absolutely great. Not perfect, in my opinion, but I do really enjoy myself when it comes to this handheld and fighting games. Just the way how I can grip this device and just play it. But the D-pad do have the quite long travel. It's not really a handicap whatsoever, but you need to get used to it. But next up, let's try Contra for the D-pad, and I can tell you that this is not bad at all, where I can shoot in every single direction without any problem whatsoever. So looking at the joysticks, they are similar to the Nintendo Switch, even with the tiny click underneath. And not to forget, we're having over here the select and start, and I find that always very pleasant to have them on top. And having over here micro switch select and start buttons. Over here the AB and the HY, it's still kind of interesting that they changed it on. It's kind of getting a little bit of malfunction in my brain, but I'm getting used to it. But when you're looking at the touch, it's very nice. The travel of the buttons are absolutely great, not too long. There's a little bit of like a wiggle to it, but especially when it comes to the shape, it's very pleasant to play. So I already mentioned before, I hate these switch like tiny buttons, but this is completely different, and they did a great job with it. Underneath there we're going to find 2 Type-C ports, one for charging and the other one we can use for adding an extra controller. And if you do want to use an headphone, we still have it, and 2 micro SD cards. We're been complaining a lot lately about the cheap, the horrible SD cards that get automatically corrupted. Powkiddy is bringing you something slightly different. It's not the brand that I know of. CPIY doesn't say anything to me, but I think it's always better than those really cheap unbranded. So this is for the firmware and the OS, and this is going to be for your storage when it comes to the overall games. But something I really need to mention is the front-facing speakers of the RGB30. This sounds absolutely amazing. Just listen to it. But when it comes to the software itself, this comes pre-installed with Gel OS, or Jelly OS if I'm saying it correctly. And one thing is that it's absolutely a great piece of software, but take consideration it's highly possible when receiving this product that you don't have any audio whatsoever. The next thing that we need to do is go to the settings of this device, the network in this case, because we're going to connect it to the internet. Yep, we're going to find a network in your area. We're going to update your device, and that's one of the first things that I recommend doing if you have any problems when it comes to the audio like me. That's one thing I just want to mention. But when it comes to the overall compatibility with the chipset that is in here, yeah, that is going to be the same stuff that we've seen many times before. But for people new, let's do a quick overview. So first of all, the layout they're implementing in this device is absolutely great. And I can tell you, this thing looks absolutely amazing. It's such a very strange but also unique experience with this display they are using. But if you want the TV out, in my experience, I need to reboot the system for this particular application. But it's quite cool. They can actually use this thing on the television and combine it with the Bluetooth controller. We do have freaking like a game system. You can also change out the volume from the system itself. And just relaxing, play some old school PlayStation games on your television. Yeah, but it doesn't help with my gameplay. Yeah, but you get the point. And the same is it when you're going to be switching to the handheld itself. You can wait forever to get the screen back. So the thing that we need to do is plug it back in, shut down the system, and then plug out the cable and reboot. The RGB30 comes with a 4-inch display that looks absolutely amazing with a resolution of 720 by 720. The Rook chip 3566, that is an ARM Cortex quad-core running on 1.8 GHz. LPDDR4, 1 GB of RAM. The battery life will be around 8 hours and having charging time of 2 hours. The specification list is also interesting for emulation. So let's get into it and let's see how it looks and how it plays. But when we're going to get into the Game Boy, there we're going to have a different aspect ratio and of course resolution. We still have a tiny black bar at the bottom and the top, but it's even less noticeable. And if you just want to enjoy some classic games, this is absolutely a very cool way to do so. And there are so many hidden games, absolutely classics when it comes to the Game Boy Classic. And they look just freaking amazing on this beautiful display. But where we had an amazing resolution and a screen filler with the Game Boy Classic, of course with the GBA it's going to be slightly different. And the black bars are way more noticeable. If you just want to keep it on the right resolution, this is just actually one of the ways to play. But we're going to back into the Game Gear and the handheld. There with the Game Gear we're going to have absolutely amazing resolution. And this is of course one of those systems that makes a great advantage of the screen itself. It's absolutely a lot of fun playing these old school games again. Oh, messed it up. Let's move into the home systems, and then first we're going to take a look at the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, where I grew up with it. And it's absolutely looking great on the display with its crisp, clear IPS panel. But we do have bezels at the bottom and the top. I think they're not really annoying because they're not that gigantic compared with the Game Boy Advance, for example. But still, it's quite manageable. Oh, there we go. Another frame drop. And there we go, there we go. That's great and annoying. Say hello to my little friend. Okay, let's move on to some PlayStation emulation, and yep, we can play it on so many different handhelds, but just wanted to check it out on this particular RGB30 model.
Round one, fight.
Oh, there goes my perfect. Okay, next up I wanted to showcase some PlayStation Portable, but take consideration if you're just going to play PlayStation Portable on this. In my opinion, this is not the experience you want to have. Look at those massive black bars, and you can maybe stretch it out in the software, but that's not the way I actually want to play. In my opinion, combination with the mixed performance of emulation, yeah, PlayStation Portable is absolutely not a device you want to play on this particular Powkiddy model. Absolutely not. It's fun that it's there, but that's all. But getting into the PlayStation emulation and PlayStation Portable was all fun and game. But of course, let's double check some Sega Dreamcast. I did notice some minor glitching here and there, and that's actually an emulator problem in my opinion. But the overall performance is quite good. But let's talk about how this thing has been assembled. There are only 4 screws holding the 2 shells together, because all of the other parts are basically clicked together. Yep, it's quite, let's say, flexible plastic, and the overall construction is just how I've seen Powkiddy many times before. It's just a basically cheap way in my opinion. It's quite interesting how they also assemble these things. So here we're going to get the battery. This is a 4100 milliamp battery. It can get quite hot in my opinion in here. And the same goes for the chips. Been using it for some time, but there is no cooling whatsoever needed. So how is it with the repairs? To begin with, the joysticks can be replaced. There are the 2 screws holding this thing together, and then a ribbon cable. Same goes for an LCD, can be replaced. And the battery is coming loose already. So that's quick. But the same goes also for the speakers. So the construction itself, the way how you look at and you can replace stuff, that has been done fairly nicely. So let's get this battery back in and let's put it back together.